If there is one thing you can say about Kevin Durant, he always has a way of keeping things interesting. And these latest rumors are no different. Now, it's been well publicized, well reported by now, that Kevin Durant is going to be gone for the Phoenix Suns. That is a foregone conclusion. But now the question is, where is he going to go? And when you have a star like this on the market, there's going to be a lot of offseason drama centered solely around Kevin Durant, and for good reason. Yes, he's getting up there in age, but this is one of, if not the best scorer we've ever seen, especially in the way that he can do it at all three levels, and in the way that he can go into any offense and immediately make an impact as a great plug and play player. Because sometimes you get someone in there a bad fit. Look at Russell Westbrook in the Lakers. Talented player, former MVP, but it was a bad fit in Los Angeles. But with Kevin Durant, he's a little bit more free and easy. And he's going to get his buckets regardless. He's going to be impactful regardless. And so Kevin Durant, that's going to be a hot topic of this offseason. And there's a lot of teams that you could not fault for wanting to go after KD. But this drama, it just keeps getting more and more interesting. The other day, I talked about the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. And there were three teams that I had on my list that I thought made a lot of sense for Kevin Durant. I had OKC, because Kevin Durant, he, as good as he has been, as great as he has been, has never truly had a home in the NBA. And that's not to say that he really cares from everything we've seen. That's not his biggest priority. But to be able to go home to OKC and retire there, spend your final few years there, in theory, that makes sense for KD, especially considering they're a champion. They're more than a championship contender. They're probably going to win this year. And Kevin Durant, of course, is someone who makes decisions based off his ability to win and his ability to hoop. OKC offers both, as well as a proper home for him to end it where it all started. Then I had Minnesota. Their superstar, Anthony Edwards, looked up to KD. In Minnesota, they're probably going to need to make a big move this offseason. There's not many bigger than one for Kevin Durant. Then I have the Houston Rockets, another team that's been linked to him, but now there's another team in the mix. Those are the San Antonio Spurs. And they're not only in the mix, it's looking like this is a pretty solid option for Kevin Durant, and one with a lot of mutual interest from both sides. The latest report from Shams is that the Phoenix Suns and KD's business partner, they're looking through trade options. And the main primary interested teams are the Houston Rockets, Minnesota Timberwolves, Miami Heat, the New York Knicks, and the San Antonio Spurs. And if he went to the Spurs, that would be an absolutely crazy move. But as time progresses, it seems like it's more and more likely. Like this might be the destination for him. In fact, Bill Simmons said it could already be done. He said on his podcast on Monday, quote, "I wouldn't be surprised if KT to the Spurs is done already and they just haven't announced it." Sports Illustrated put out an article about it. "It feels like the Spurs are a serious contender to get Kevin Durant." And that's absolutely insane to think about. Take a look at this team already. De'Aaron Fox, Chris Paul, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and of course you've got Wemby as well as Stephon Castle. There's a lot for this team already. Then you add Kevin Durant to the mix. And yes, you're going to have to lose some depth, but I think that's a risk you're more than willing to take to acquire someone of this magnitude. If Kevin Durant wants to go to your team, that's hard to deny. And all this makes the question, could Kevin Durant actually go to the San Antonio Spurs? This is someone in the twilight years of his career. And so the majority of the teams linked to him are ones that you might think of as immediate contenders, right? OKC, which is looking like that's less likely now. Minnesota, Houston, New York, and maybe not immediate contenders, but ones that might be a move away. And especially if that move is Kevin Durant, they could very well be in championship contention. And the Spurs aren't necessarily a team that you might think of in that tier initially. But then you think about De'Aaron Fox and Wemby and the fact that Stephon Castle is only going to get better. There's a lot going for this team. You think about, of course, the potential of Wemby. This is someone who was an all-time prospect in terms of the hype surrounding him, and for good reason. The potential of Wemby is insane, with the ability to be a perennial MVP as well as Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And you look at his playstyle on the court, he's 7'4", but he doesn't play it like he's 7'4". There's a smoothness, a polish to his game that you don't see from very many big men. And he's not afraid to shoot the rock either. This season, the Spurs, I think they tried to experiment a little with Wemby because his three-point attempts went way up. And there was some criticism that was drawn there. But ultimately, I think you look at what the Spurs did with Sohan the year before, where they put Jeremy Sohan on a point guard. He was never going to be the long term answer at point guard, but it was to develop his playmaking chops. And I think it was the same thing with Wemby to develop his ability from beyond the arc. And then you think about what Kevin Durant does. He is an elite three level scorer with an insane amount of height on him as well, although not quite to that same level of Wemby, of course. And that would be a great mentor for number one in San Antonio. I don't know that there's any better options for a mentor than Kevin Durant. Matter of fact, you already got Chris Paul there too. That's another great mind for basketball. But Kevin Durant, he can connect with Wemby. He is someone with a similar build, although still not quite that same height, but nobody does. And looking at the way that KD plays, that could be what the Spurs want Wemby to be in a way. So that would be an incredible mentor for KD to pass on his knowledge and tools of the trade to Wemby. Would that be something that Kevin Durant's interested in? I think so. Once again, you talk about a player not having a home. I don't know that that matters that much to KD. But if he comes in to San Antonio for his final years and he trains Wemby, he teaches Wemby, that's huge. And if Wemby goes on to reach his potential, his ceiling, that city's going to love you for your contributions forever. As well as the fact that when you look at the talent on this roster, it's feasible that a Kevin Durant move could very well get them into contention. Now, of course, we're yet to see some postseason experience from these guys, but when you've got KD, when you've got Wemby, when you've got Stephon Castle, who just won Rookie of the Year, he's only getting better, and you've got De'Aaron Fox, the sky is the limit on paper there. And given the way that, because a lot of times when you've got this move that looks good on paper, a lot of the time there is a big time adjustment period, especially when you're making this drastic change. Look at the Minnesota Timberwolves when they first acquired Rudy Gobert. At first, it was a big move, yes. But year one, with Gobert, they didn't show much improvement compared to the year prior without him. Then in year two, they were the number three seed in the West in one win behind the teams that were tied for the one seed. With KD, I think there's a little bit less of an adjustment period there. Because once again, his skill set, you can kind of plug and play him anywhere, and he's going to find a way to get a bucket and be impactful. So that's huge. I think you add KD to this team, they could at least kind of be dark horse contenders, or very well much so in the playoffs. And KD, he wants to win, of course. That's why he joined the Warriors so many years ago. He didn't care about his legacy, about being the villain of the league. He wanted to win. And the Spurs, I think they have the ability to offer that as well as that mentorship role, as well as a home for KD. But is this move feasible? Could it really happen? And sometimes when two sides want to trade, sometimes the thing that's in the way is the financials of it. And Kevin Durant, obviously, he's making a lot of money. Next year, he'll be making 54.7 million to be exact. And I think a trade piece in this move could be Devin Vassell of the Spurs. Because he's on a pretty big contract too. And at one point in time, he was the go-to guy in San Antonio, but now with the addition of Wemby, that is obviously the franchise cornerstone there. And that leaves Devin Vassell in a state where, yes, he's a good player, but with all this money that he's making, is this a guy that you commit to long term to put around Wemby? I'm not certain. And of course, Vassell is not making KD money. Next year, he'll be making 27 million. But that is a good starting point there in terms of financials. And in terms of the player himself, Devin Vassell is not a bad player whatsoever. It's just a matter of the situation with the Spurs. They got a lot of guards there too, in Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox. Those are probably the guys in the backcourt moving forward for them. And once again, that leaves Devin Vassell in a state kind of trying to find his role. And I think if he goes to the Phoenix Suns, that could be a fresh opportunity to start over with him. So I think if you're the Suns, obviously you're looking to get something back in return for a guy like KD. You're looking to get a lot back. And that's going to involve first round picks. That's going to involve some quality players. And one of those players, in my opinion, could very well be Devin Vassell. Especially when you consider that now, with that Suns roster, apparently, according to some reports, they are expecting to offer Devin Booker a massive contract. And so, with that, if you've just got Devin Booker and nobody else to go out there and get a bucket on your team, because what is the status of Bradley Beal at this point? Do the Suns try to move on from him as well? No matter what, when you've got Devin Booker on your team, he's going to be good enough to be able to keep your team afloat. And you're not going to be a contender led by solely Devin Booker, but you're not going to be the first pick in the lottery either. And so with Book, do you try to push that playoff contention just a little bit further and add in another scorer in Devin Vassell? This guy that you could still maybe try to develop and see if he hasn't plateaued, he just needs a new role. And that's not going to catapult you to championship contention, but it could keep you in that playoff race because once again, with D Book on the roster, if he stays there with this big contract he might get, you're not going to be at the bottom of the league, so you might as well make it fun. And overall, yes, it seems this trade makes sense for both sides. There's a lot of motivation on every single end, whether it's the Phoenix Suns, because KD, he's gone. That is a foregone conclusion. You want to get a good deal out of him. The Spurs, they can offer you some stuff. For San Antonio, bringing in someone like Kevin Durant, on the business side, even, that's going to bring in a lot of money. That's going to be a big, big move. And in terms of on the court play, which is arguably even more important, he could be an incredible mentor to Wemby, especially with his play style. And he's going to fit seamlessly into this team because wherever he goes, he's going to be an elite scorer. And you don't need to build a team around Kevin Durant. He can fit in nicely. That's the beauty of having a superstar like him. And then for Kevin Durant to have the ability to mentor Wemby, to get a home in San Antonio perhaps, and especially to just have a chance to go at it with this team, with De'Aaron Fox, with Castle, with Wemby. These are the twilight years of your career. You might as well make them count. And there's no better way than this blockbuster move to San Antonio in terms of both on and off the court factors. And that leads us to the big question: can and will and is Kevin Durant going to the San Antonio Spurs? I think that it very well could happen. It makes a lot of sense. And of course, there are a lot of attractive destinations. But where there is smoke, there is fire, and there are plenty of rumors right now floating around about the Spurs, and for good reason, perhaps. I think that there is a very good chance KD could find himself in that black and white next year. All eyes are on Kevin Durant right now, and he might just have his eyes on the San Antonio Spurs.